Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the program today, a man who has an opinion on just about every important issue, and he's got a large forum, too. Scott Craigie has the rundown.
For a quarter century, Tom Mitchell has been the editor of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. This is their year as we look at ballot initiatives that cut and limit taxation and spending, and many of the other agenda items that that editorial board has talked about for decades. Tom comes up next.
And coming up on the Power Pundit panel today, Larry Matheis, Jim Denton, and Marlene Lockard. It's all coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
High-tech companies demand perfect world amenities. They require clean, reliable power, state-of-the-art fiber optic communications, and clean water sources. In a perfect world, companies would have immediate access to rail and interstate freeways. There would be 4-lane expressways that shorten shipping times and provide convenient commute routes for valued employees. Well, the future is now, and it's here. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the largest industrial park in the world, building economic prosperity for Nevadans.
When making your decision as where to play golf, consider the resort at Red Hawk. You know you have made the right choice the moment you arrive. The friendly staff welcomes you to our award-winning pro shop. You know you've made the right decision on the first tee. The Lakes course is in the best condition in years. You know you've made the right choice after you've played 18 holes. The resort at Red Hawk, the right choice.
Nevada Newsmakers is sponsored in part by the Nevada Beer Wholesalers Association.
As an employer, did you know you can be held liable for negligent hiring? A background screening by Employer Links can uncover criminal records, like alcohol and drug convictions. It can verify the applicant's education, driving records, and professional licenses. Employer Links can check civil records, registered sex offender records, and Social Security fraud. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
I tell you, John, this industry has really changed.
Tell me about it.
You seem to do pretty well last year. What's your secret?
No secrets. Although I'll tell you something. The smartest thing I did was sign up with Pro Group Management.
Really? Yeah, they do workers' comp, right?
Yeah, their services are great. And get this, they saved me 30%. I've heard they saved others 50%.
That works for me.
Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we are very pleased to welcome to the program Tom Mitchell, who is the editor of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. I don't recall another time that he's done a program like this, but we really appreciate you being here today, Tom. I always advise our viewers and listeners that they should go to a lot of different sources to get their news, and the people they agree with, the people they disagree with, just so they get a balance of information. If they come to your paper, especially to the editorial pages, they're going to find a very conservative editorial position and somewhat libertarian position. So on that basis, go ahead.
I agree wholeheartedly on the advice of checking out information from many different sources, although I think we're one of the better ones, but I think people need to seek out information and do the best to keep themselves informed. Not enough people do that these days.
Let's ask you about a couple of issues here that have come up. And as always, we'd like to point out in this program that Jim Rogers is the owner of KVBC, KRNV, and Channel 123, upon which this program airs. He's also the chancellor of the university system. And he suggested that there'd be a search for a new Clark County superintendent of schools, and that the pay for that job should be somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000. And in a story by Casey Howard in your paper today, Jim Rogers has actually ponied up money himself, along with 6 wealthy Las Vegas families, for a total of $55,000 towards that search. Isn't that an outrageous sum of money, considering that the teachers just got 2% and 2% out of the state legislature, and we're going to pony up?
Oh, you mean for The money for the search, they did the search last time. That's how we got Carlos Garcia.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is that
he's been the superintendent for 4.
Yeah, but what about the size of the proposed salary?
Where's the ceiling? You know, when do you want to stop opening the top floor window and throwing money out? At some point, there has to be some relationship between the job and the salary given. You can't just keep saying that the sky's the limit. We'll just keep giving money till we get Superman. You know, everyone's got their foibles. I mean, when Carlos Garcia first got to Las Vegas, he had his problems, and he's had his problems for the last 5 years.
Tom,
in many ways, he
go ahead and finish your sentence. I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying in many ways he had some good ideas, but he was in the middle of a bureaucracy. You can't move this, huge battleship in just a matter of years. You've got to, unless you're going to come in and make sweeping, firing people, and that would get you in trouble as well.
Tom, your newspaper has
the amount of money is just ridiculous.
Your newspaper has a very conservative approach to how people should spend money, and I think that the theme probably boils down to you spend what you have, not necessarily what you want. And you make those points very well, and I know that you would agree with that. To the extent, though, that this community, and many people see this community as growing very rapidly and creating some very large needs. Our schools are failing to meet academic standards. We know that we are among the lowest in the expenditures for Medicaid. Some areas where there are great needs, sometimes
no, I disagree with that.
And I'm going to let you make that pitch. That's what I want to do. I want to hear, why is it that the needs don't drive the money that government spends as much as the money that happens to be available at any particular time?
Well, if you just look at the amount of money we're spending and paying in taxes over the years, it has greatly outstripped the growth in the economy. In fact, Milton Friedman said a couple of years ago that we're already 50% a socialist nation because 40% of everything we earn goes into paying taxes, another 10% goes into regulatory compliance. I mean, at some point, what part of the economy can government and public schools absorb? At some point, you have to say that's enough. The answer is, we've got, the 5th biggest school district in the country. If the answer is to just hire Superman, or is the answer to say maybe we need 2 of the 10th biggest in the country instead of 1 5th biggest?
So you're in favor of splitting up the school district?
Yeah, split it up 4 ways.
And you wouldn't be concerned?
Competition. If I lived in one part of town and that I found that the schools were better in another part of town, I'd move. And that's what we've done all over the country. I mean, how many people have moved into the state of Nevada in the last 20 years? Where do they come from? Overtaxed states like California. You've got to consider competition. That's a fundamental aspect that government seems to ignore.
Well, you raise an
where do you get an alternative?
Well, no, you raise an interesting point. I want to bring up another topic associated with Jim Rogers, and that is his comments regarding Jim Gibbons and Jim Gibbons' suitability to be governor. Do you think that Jim Rogers' comments were helpful?
It furthers the debate. Anything that does is fine. It says more about Jim Rogers than it does about Jim Gibbons, though.
At this point,
that's a lot of comments say more about the person who's saying them than what they're addressing. If he wants to run for governor, get in the race.
Okay, where do you think that this governor's race is heading at this point? It seems to be probably one of the more interesting gubernatorial campaigns we've seen in many a year.
Certainly could be. I mean, they've got some interesting candidates, both Republicans and Democrat. Maybe we'll have a third party come in that's kind of interesting, or an independent.
Do you think an independent would stand a chance?
No.
Okay, on that note, let's take a break. We'll come back more with Tom Mitchell on Nevada Newsmakers right after this.
For a videotape copy of any Nevada Newsmakers program, call 775-857-2244. The tapes are $20 each, including shipping.
My family started this business 27 years ago.
We work hard to serve our customers and our community.
But it's getting harder and harder to keep the doors open.
For example, our workers' comp is going through the roof. Isn't anyone on my side anymore?
The Retail Association of Nevada is. If you're a small business owner, we can cut your workers' comp by up to 50%, lobby for your interests, and keep you informed. Put us to work today.
materials we rely on every day come from the ground, and modern mining technology brings them to us cleaner and safer than ever before. To learn more about America's natural resources, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
Reno's best dining values are all at one casino, the Pepper Mill. You can enjoy great savings on our popular specials. Pepper Mill's coffee shop offers daily lunch specials, low-carb dining, and all your favorite comfort foods. You'll find sensational lunch specials featuring Reno's freshest seafood, sushi, pasta, and more at Oceano. And early bird specials at Reno's Premier Steakhouse and Romanza Ristorante Italiano. The best values are at the Pepper Mill. Where are you dining?
Come join the fun on Saturday, August 20th at the 5th Annual Ricky Woodring Memorial Fund and Scholarship Golf Tournament. It's an 18-hole, 4-person scramble with food and fun at the beautiful Arrow Creek Golf Club. The entry fee of $130 includes green peas, golf cart, continental breakfast, lunch, and snacks with a raffle and silent auction. All proceeds to benefit the Ricky Woodring Memorial Fund and the Galena High Athletic Programs. A hole-in-one wins a 2005 Ford Mustang, compliments of Jones West Ford. It's a day of golf, food, fun, and prizes. Call 851-7454 now to reserve your spot.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back to Tom Mitchell, who's the editor of the Las Vegas Review-Journal. You can either buy the newspaper, which Tom would like very much, or you can go to them online at LasVegasReviewJournal.com.
Tom, your newspaper is probably in hog heaven this cycle because you've got two ballot initiatives that I guess hit right home on some of the themes that you folks have played on the editorial board for a very long time. You've got Tabor, which is a spending cap that limits the amount of money that's available for government. That's one of the key issues. Let's start there first. Obviously, the paper is going to be for that. Is a state that grows as rapidly as the state of Nevada capable of operating through the spurts that we have in growth and with a tax base that suddenly falls when there's a recession on a Tabor-type formula, and why?
Now, wait a minute. How much did the tax base fall after 9/11? It was down for a couple of months. That's all it was. Frankly, I think Tabor is a good idea. I don't think it's fashioned perfectly. I would rather have it tied to, a certain percentage of GDP rather than having it tied to growth and inflation. I think those are artificial numbers. The growth in population doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have greater needs for taxation. I think the governance of any given area should be only a portion of what the economy is generating, and they have to live within that. I mean, families know this every year, every day. They have to know that what they've got in the bank is what they get to spend. But they can't go to their boss and say, I want a raise. The boss says, no. But we seem to be going every time that the police want extra police officers, the schools want extra schools. We always say yes. And at some point, we're going to reach beyond that, and we should limit government to an area that is adequate, and not where you can keep giving greater pensions, 10% raises. It's getting ridiculous. It's the law of compounding is stepping in.
Let me change topics on you, Tom. One of the things I enjoy very much about your Sunday column is you discuss a lot of freedom of the press issues. And it was interesting
I kind of cut out that niche for myself. Everybody else has other topics, so I try to limit mine to freedom of the press, access to government, free speech, the ability of the public to get information.
Let me throw some things at you here. It was interesting to note last week that Andrea Mitchell of NBC News was in Darfur at a press conference, asked a couple of questions, and was roughed up and thrown out of the press conference. She was lucky that she wasn't in one of those countries where they lock up journalists.
She wasn't in the United States. No, she forgot that.
But are you fearful of the freedom of the press in this country when a reporter can be locked up by a special prosecutor for having a conversation that never resulted in an article that never appeared in a newspaper?
I think I've said that. That is a problem. That's why I've advocated for a year now for a federal shield law, because reporters need to have not just reporters. Don't think I'm advocating for the reporter. I'm advocating for the public to be able to get information that they could not otherwise get unless the reporter can give some assurance to the people who are talking to them that they won't be having to throw these people to the wolves anytime a federal prosecutor comes calling and doing fishing expeditions. I mean, there have been a number of people over the years who wound up, locked up for contempt of court. They committed no crime. They just refused to cooperate with the courts who were out fishing instead of having the various federal prosecutors do their jobs, which is go interview people and get information themselves. Why should the reporter who's working for the public be the ones who are being an annex of the federal prosecution system? That's not right.
Are you surprised that both Senator Ensign and Reed are not jumping into this, but are saying we've got to have a thoughtful study of this and make sure that national security issues are addressed? And, while Judy Miller is now in her 3rd week in jail.
Right, and there's been other people spent 6 months in jail, too. And there was a gentleman spent 4 months house arrest just because he defied a judge, even though the judge knew at the time he sentenced him who it was that gave him the information. And there was a TV reporter out in Rhode Island.
Tom, there are a number of us that watch the media closely, and the players that are in the media, like many people, watch ball teams. And with the rolling of the Las Vegas Sun inside the Las Vegas Review-Journal, some of us are wondering what's going to happen to some of the reporters at the Sun. Are they going to have the same kind of freedom, I guess, to write the stories the way that they see? There's been some talk, and we've seen it in some of the...
Well, wait a minute. Since when have they had any freedom to write the stories the way they want? They work for a newspaper. The newspaper dictates that. No, the reporters aren't free to write anything they want. That's up to editors and publishers.
Well, and actually, the part that I was...
look at that history for yourself.
That's a very interesting comment, Tom, and we appreciate it.
It is. The other piece is there are a number of people at the Las Vegas Sun who are saying, they're going to show up the RJ from inside the RJ. What's the reaction to that kind of talk?
Well, they've had 50 years to do that. About time they showed some gumption, I guess. They haven't done it so far.
I think one of my favorite things is on Sundays reading the flailing that goes back between the Review-Journal and the Sun on the editorial pages, and it's always fun for us in the public to read that. Last quick question here. We've got about 30 seconds. The consolidation on the Strip. We've seen in some political fundraisers recently, you see the lineup when you see Harrah's and MGM Mirage backing a candidate or opposing a candidate. Do you have concerns that these giant mergers are going to significantly affect the political base in this state?
Frankly, maybe it'll just cut down on the amount of money that's being contributed, maybe because they won't compete with each other so much. I mean, the vested interest has always been there. I mean, the industry is the industry, whether it's 3 companies or 15 companies. It's a matter of what their needs are and their necessities. And I don't see a whole lot of difference.
Okay, and that's where we got to leave it. Tom Mitchell, thank you so much for doing this today. We really appreciate it, and we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll come back again.
Well, I'll be glad to.
Thank you, Tom. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
For more than a decade, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has been helping the community embrace conservation as a way of life. That includes replacing more than 50 million square feet of grass with water-smart landscaping. During the worst drought on record, watering restrictions and tough landscaping codes have reduced the community's water use by billions of gallons, even as thousands of new residents were moving into Nevada. That's smart water management, and that's our promise to Nevada.
When making your decision as where to play golf, consider the resort at Red Hawk. You know you have made the right choice the moment you arrive. The friendly staff welcomes you to our award-winning pro shop. You know you've made the right decision on the first tee. The Lakes course is in the best condition in years. You know you've made the right choice after you've played 18 holes. The resort at Red Hawk, the right choice.
So, who do you use for workers' comp?
Pro Group Management.
Ah, I've heard some good things about them.
Oh, you bet. Employee background checks, safety training, claim seminars. Oh, and here's the great part. If you have an issue, they work for you, not against you.
Sounds perfect. And expensive.
Well, that's the best part. They saved me 30%. I've heard they've saved others 50%.
Works for me.
Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
As an employer, did you know you can be held liable for negligent hiring? A background screening by Employer Links can uncover criminal records, like alcohol and drug convictions. It can verify the applicant's education, driving records, and professional licenses. Employer Links can check civil records, registered sex offender records, and Social Security fraud. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And on our Power Pundit panel today, a great one. We welcome back to the show Jim Denton of Jim Denton & Associates. And Larry Matheis is here. He's the Executive Director of the Nevada State Medical Association, and Marlene Lockard with Capital Strategy. And all four of you, I'm going to ask you for your political affiliations so nobody yells at me after the show saying they didn't disclose. So,
Democrat?
No, but who are you working for? Or
Actually, I'm on the steering committee for Jim Gibbons.
I haven't affiliated with anybody.
I'm a Democrat, and I'm a senior advisor to Dina Titus.
I am a Republican, and I'm an advisor to both Jim and Don Gibbons.
They're all working on me right now.
And I'm being double-teamed, as usual, but...
Well, they say that they're actually defenseless because you can beat them both.
Beat them, period. End of sentence. The RJ swallows up the Las Vegas Sun. What are the ramifications, if any, on media, and what's fun to look for?
Well, you have to realize the Las Vegas Sun, Scott, has gone from a circulation in the last few years of around 50,000 down to 24,000, 25,000. The way I look at it, it can only be a better development for the Sun in terms of competition with the RJ and as well as reporting for the Valley.
I think it's going to be fun to see a little bit of balance in the morning paper because, as your interview just indicated, a very, very conservative libertarian viewpoint mixed now in the morning with the Las Vegas Sun more liberal view. I think it'll be fun reading for the folks in Nevada.
And fair disclosure, my better half works for the Las Vegas Sun, and I used to write a column for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. I think there is this growing sense of loss around the country of various voices in the media. That there is so much consolidation that everything seems to come out of the talking points of the various groups that run the media. There was a time when the place you looked to for diversity in voice, for different opinions, and for different takes on the same news were in the newspapers. That's not going to be there as time goes on, and we're in this transitional period. I hope that there are these multitude of voices, and that we replace what we're losing with something at least as equal.
And I think, personally, I thoroughly enjoy the Sunday edition of the Las Vegas Review-Journal that already incorporates the Sun, and where you get that diversity of editorials, and it's always fun to read them and see them beating each other up.
It'll be interesting to see if there'll be an internal feud.
Well,
I think there may be.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. There's been a lot of layoffs already. Let's talk about what's going on with the Assembly Republicans. Lynn Hetrick, it appears, is going to be stepping down, and Bob Seale has put his name up as somebody who wants to be the leader, the minority leader, for the Republicans. But then again, the rumors afloat that just about everybody wants to be the minority leader. Is this turning into a version of Survivor, Jim?
No, Bob Seale wins.
I think Bob Seale is a terrific legislator and would be a very good leader for the Assembly Republicans. I think there's a real loss with Lynn Hetrick. I personally believe Lynn Hetrick is one of the finest legislators that we've had in the Nevada legislature.
I agree with that, and I think that whole process of being in the minority, Lynn has never been in the majority. I was involved in Lynn's first campaign. Lynn has never been in the majority, and I think that process of constantly being in the minority, I think, finally has taken its impact on me.
I certainly agree that Lynn Hetrick has nothing to feel ashamed of. He's been a remarkable leader and a very steady person during some very volatile times. Bob Seale would be an excellent leader. I think Dr. Mabee would be an excellent leader. There's a whole array of very good people in that caucus who are ready to bloom. And my guess is that right now everybody imagines themselves as the next leader, and then then it begins to break down as they begin talking and talking about other roles they'd like to play. But that's the normal political process.
Your thoughts?
Actually, I think that Bob Seale wanted to be the second in command during the last cycle and didn't spend his time going one-on-one. I think he's learned from that. He was an executive when he was in the constitutional office that he had state treasurer. If he can learn to work with that whole team, I think he'll do a very good job. I agree, Garn maybe, and there are others that would be good leaders. But I think there are some mainline committee assignments where those people will go and have an impact, and they often do.
You know, another interesting development in the last week or so was that Ann O'Connell is going to head up the Tabor push. What do you think about that, Marlene?
Well, I think Ann is a very well-respected conservative, and I think that's a perfect pick. I think that was a fine pick.
I can't think of anyone to make that case with more authenticity than Ann O'Connell.
Yeah, I agree with that, Larry. And I'll tell you, Tabor is going to be a challenge for people that do not support it, in my opinion, to defeat. Excuse me. Because, the problem is, in the last legislative session, new spending from the last session of government was $1 billion. And that's going to be very hard to justify, in my opinion. And that's going to give Tabor some momentum going forward, I think.
Do you think that the number of Republican senators that are against it is going to have an effect, or is it just going to be an overwhelming response from the public?
I think it will have an effect, and I think, one way to read it is all you're doing is capping waste. It just takes away your flexibility. So when you're capping what you can spend, you're also capping some waste that's built in there. I think you need the flexibility to really take a hard look at the root issues in the budget.
And I know everybody wants to jump in, but we're out of time. I'm sorry. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
Here at the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, water resources come from fresh, clean groundwater, approved by state permits. The water is pumped from wells to million-gallon storage tanks and then distributed to TRI companies. Another amenity is our investment in a state-of-the-art wastewater treatment plant. This disposal system converts waste to clean water for industrial applications. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the largest industrial park in the world, building economic prosperity for Nevada.
South Reno's hotspot for food, fun, and friends is the Tamarack Junction. Enjoy great food 24 hours a day in the Dining Car Restaurant. For a quick bite and the best sandwiches in town, it's the Whistle Stop Deli. And for the best appetizers and menu selections and a large variety of cocktails, beers, and martinis, it's Sully's Sports Bar, Grill, and Nightclub. The Tamarack Junction is your junction for fun. South Virginia and Amati Ranch Parkway.
Coming up on our next show, John L. Smith of the Las Vegas Review-Journal and Teresa Benitez. And don't forget, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers online at nevadanewsmakers.com.